Hi, welcome to Longevity is the New Wellness, where we discuss how longevity is the new motivation for engaging in health and wellness activities. I'm Will Bozeman, and I have a great episode for you today where we're going to discuss some of the fundamental elements of how longevity is a motivational tool. One of the things I talk about routinely is a platform called RELATYV, RELATYV, and I want to talk about why that's valuable in the quest for longevity. Firstly, one of the things I want to discuss is a term called biologic age reduction. And quite simply, in the realm of longevity, biologic age reduction is testing for a younger biologic age than you are chronologically. And as we discussed in the last episode, your chronologic age relative to your biologic age. And that's where the actual term relative comes from. But as you know, your chronologic age is a measure of how long you've been alive since you were born. It's very simple. Biologic age is a measure of what your physiology and your cells believe that they are. Now, they're not keeping up with score. They simply reflect their metabolic activities, and their actual physical presence is a reflection of how old they are. But what we can do, what we have done as a health and scientific community, is we've documented some pretty extensive data along the way. And what we've been able to do is create statistical evaluations of how old someone is based off of their biologic metrics. And there's several different metrics to choose. One of the ones that's very popular is just a simple blood test, a blood evaluation. There are a number of markers in your blood that allow you to analyze how old a person is based off of the levels and the correlations of those levels in your blood. We're not going to go into the detail of that today on this episode, but we're doing a general overview. The collection of all these different blood markers can allow an algorithm or a researcher to analyze and discern how old you are based off of all the previously collected data. And there's quite a bit of data out there. One of the groups I know that do this, they have something in the way of, they told me they had 500,000 different blood tests that they had used as their foundational scoring metric for how they evaluate health reports and age in general. They at the time, they weren't producing an age score for people, but they could very easily find in the literature and in the research data that an average 50-year-old person of this demographic has this average blood configuration. All right, so that's what they're doing. That's the basis for how they correlate chronologic age with your physiologic markers. So how do we use that in the realm of longevity? So what we're doing is creating a scenario where we take a test and then we analyze these metrics in your blood. And then if those metrics are testing at the rates and statistics of where you would be, say, 10 years younger, the average markers that a 40-year-old of your demographic would express, that is how we're achieving this biologic age reduction test method. And the same thing occurs in genetics. If you're doing a DNA test, there's a number of different versions of this. There's an actual DNA test using blood as well. There's DNA tests using cheek swabs and other metrics like that. But the concept is still the same. Where should a 50-year-old of XYZ demographic fall in that test range, right? And then, of course, any alteration of that average can now be attributed to some other reason. And if you're testing as a 60 or 70-year-old person, but you're chronologically 50, you've probably had some additional stress occurring. And that stress can be a number of things, environmental stresses of all kinds. And I say in stress meaning pollutants or any sort of elements or items that are actually inhibiting your cells, damaging your cells. Obviously, everyone knows that smoking is bad for you, and so the constant exposure to pollutants of that nature are damaging cells and stressing them in the wrong direction, creating them to appear to be older than they are when they're tested. And I have actually talked to a friend of mine who was a smoker, and he tested something around 10 or 12 years older than he was when he got his test done. And he was disappointed to hear that, but I'm like, well, that makes sense because you've been smoking for, probably 30, 40 years. So it's going to reflect in your physiology in that age score. So when we talk about biologic age reduction and longevity as the new wellness, now you kind of understand what the objective is. We're trying to produce motivation to make health and wellness changes in your life that specifically can reduce those age markers that actually would reflect a younger version of yourself. That is exactly what we're doing. That's exactly what the whole world of longevity is trying to do. And that's why I love the concept that longevity is the new wellness, because it truly is. And if you have a fundamental drive to live longer, as most people do, then you have a reason to want to engage in these activities. And I've had a lot of people ask me this question. Well, what's the difference, though, between people knowing what's bad for them and not doing it, but they still do it anyway, versus knowing that this activity or this event is going to extend their life and they're still not going to do it anyway, right? There's Surgeon General warnings on cigarettes. There's everyone knows a range of drugs and alcohol are all bad for people. There's a lot of activities that are bad. People still do it. And that's a good argument to make. But one of my counter arguments is if you had a way to track and measure the specific events that are occurring, there's a little bit more motivation for someone to engage in these activities in the right direction, the actual healthy activities. If I could show a person on a regular basis what the actions that they've engaged in over the last month have done to reflect on their age, and I can show that in a realistic way, I could use that as a motivational tool for people to actually engage in a better health and wellness experience in their life. And so that's the objective of the RELATYV platform. So I want to go into, now that you know that there's this objective of achieving a biologic age reduction, testing at a younger age than you are. And again, the other question people ask is, well, if biologic age reduction, doesn't sound like that equals quote unquote longevity. What exactly does that mean? Well, the idea is that if the average person is going to live to, say, 75 years old, and you're testing 20 years younger, the theory would be that if you can maintain that health and wellness lifestyle that you have achieved in testing, quote unquote, 20 years younger than you are, that would extend into those older years and potentially get you to the age of 95 versus 75 on average. That's the theory behind biologic age reduction. That's why we would track it that way. All right. So again, I talk about this all the time. You have to maintain it. You could be great. You could be healthy for a month. And if you don't maintain it, then of course the benefits will eventually fade away. So it's all about maintaining the lifestyle, which is, again, goes back to longevity as the new wellness, because you have an ongoing motivation to continue it. It's not just a quote unquote diet that you engage in until you have achieved quote unquote the result you're looking for, which would be some weight loss. Or you're not going to the gym and hitting the weights until you look a little bit better or get the six-pack you're after and the goal accomplished, right? And then you give up because it's hard to maintain. Once you've achieved your goal, right, it's hard to maintain it. In this scenario here, longevity is an ongoing thing because it's, mortality is presently with us every day. So there's this drive for us to want to live longer, and that drives our wellness and health efforts. So how does this RELATYV health platform actually work to help? So I'll go through it with some step-by-step understanding of this. The first thing that happens is a blood test. We get a blood test and we provide a RELATYV health report. This is a very thorough functional health report of everything going on in your body. It's a very detailed blood analysis. There's a team of MDs that I have contracted with who do the evaluations. They've been doing this for decades. This is their expertise is in-depth, thorough analysis of blood results, right? And we created a unique and specialized process for our blood testing, and that includes an age score, something that they had not previously intertwined into their system. It was something that they had to go and put that together at my request years ago. So a patient would get this thorough health report. It comes back with all the recommendations. Well, it shows everything that's good and bad in their health system at the moment. And then it comes back with a whole list of recommendations. Some of those things might be lifestyle changes. Some might be products, recommended supplements. Some might actually be medications that they need because the blood tests indicate for it. There's a range of things that might come back and suggest for a patient, but it also comes back and suggests what their biologic age truly is at the moment. So we have a great starting point. We also have a great outline of what they need to do to achieve better health. So I have had this discussion with many people. That health report alone is very motivating, and in some ways, a little overwhelming, a little too motivating, if you will. There's so much in it that a person by themselves would have a very hard time engaging in all of it. And I actually had a very close friend who tried this. They got that relative health report back, and they're on their own, and they were just overwhelmed with the number of things that they needed to do in their life to accommodate the results, right? There's so many things that they need to be doing and changes. Now, this particular person did need to make a lot of changes. Most people may not have as many recommendations, but there's going to be plenty of recommendations. There's going to be a lot of them. So we talk about the coaching platform. In the next episode, we'll be talking with an expert about the longevity coach certification and how these longevity coaches are able to help actually engage in a person's currently daily lifestyle to get those changes in their life. So let's going back to the relative health report. They get all of this and they get a biologic age score. Okay, so this is the question that I've had from even several doctors. What good is that? What good is that age score? They didn't see the value. I actually had one doctor tell me, point blank, I think that the only use for that is for people to brag, for someone to use it and say, well, I test younger than you, right? That was his only comment to having an age score. He saw no value in it. And I kind of laughed with him. I was like, I get it. And some of the voices in the longevity field right now, they do promote their success in achieving a biologic age reduction score. I like to call it a score because there's a lot of elements to testing for age. It's not just one thing. So there's a score metric of how it works, but it's reflective of your biologic age. But in his case, he suggested it was basically a way to brag. And in his experience, the other experts in the field have been using it to brag. Oh, I test 25 years younger than I am. I test 30 years younger than I am, right? And so I could see that. I could see his point. And his opinion was, well, what good is that to a patient? If they know that they are 10 years younger than they are or that they're 10 years older than they are, what good is that to a patient? They still need to follow this relative health report, this outline. And I agree with him. I was like, well, yeah, they still need to follow the health outline. Okay, well, now they have it. What's the next step? What's going to be the driving motivation to engage in this? Or do they just throw up their hands and quit? Or just give up and go have a bowl of ice cream because it's just too much stuff to do? And his opinion came around to this. He's like, I could see what you're talking about, that for some people, that could be a very motivating factor for them to actually see the age scoring change over time. And after I explained it to him in more detail 2 or 3 times, he finally started to understand what I was getting at here, how this longevity concept can be the driving force for their health and wellness changes. So going back to that is what's happening. So the next question is, and of course his question is, yeah, but they'd have to get that, if they want to stay motivated, they have to get that test all the time. No one wants to go get that blood test done every month. And I joked, I was like, I know some people that would probably do it every month just because they want to see the realistic age score. But that very idea that there's a time frame of, I guess, call it feasibility of when the next blood test is valuable to you, that's why your doctor really only orders a blood test on you maybe once every 6 months, right? They don't order a blood test on you once a month or every 2 months. They need time for the activities that you're engaging in, the medications you're taking. They need time for those to actually set in and reflect in your blood work. So there's usually at most about a 6-month window between when you get one blood test and another. So if you were only getting an age score once every 6 months, it's very possible for people to lose motivation during that time frame, right? Between the first test and the next test at 6 months, they could very well lose their steam, lose their motivation. So that's what actually drove me to want to create a way to predictively analyze your biologic age score between the blood tests. And that's exactly what the RELATYV platform does. It is a predictive age scoring algorithm, right? So I will explain what that means. And as an age scoring algorithm, we know from the research that there are a number of activities that can produce biologic age reduction by testing, right? So we can do a test on someone and this particular metric or item tests at X. They engage in this particular activity for a number of months or weeks, whatever the case is, test them again, comes back, and they now test at Y for that particular metric, whatever it is. It could be 20 different blood markers, could be some genetic markers that you're looking at, but you look at the same one twice, and they're seeing changes, right? So these are physiologic changes that are occurring because you have engaged in some sort of activity. I'll just list a few of the ones that are very popular right now. Everyone knows, they've heard about sauna therapy, people getting heat sauna therapy. There's cryotherapy that's very popular. You see, people doing cold plunges all the time now, and people doing cold showers. I've had people, swear up and down that doing cold showers has changed their life. Well, this probably has. That probably literally changed their life, changed their physiology. There's hyperbaric oxygen therapy, HBOT. I come from a diving background, so I appreciate that HBOT is a valuable medical therapy because it just takes me back mentally to all those years of diving, scuba diving. So that's fun. But there's also other things. There's special diets, methylation diets, longevity diets. And there's been testing done showing that when people engage in those particular activities, and there's others as well, there's plenty, but they engage in those particular activities, and the result is before and after testing shows changes in the positive direction, right? And I have a list of descriptive terms. So in the book, Longevity is the New Wellness, in the very first section or two, I talk about these descriptive terms that I use to explain how this works so that anyone who's reading this can really get the idea of what's going on. So that's the idea behind this. If you engage in these activities, they will produce these effects, but how rapidly will that occur? How effective is it for you? In some of the research I've seen, some of the participants had dramatic changes, and some of them had modest changes, and some had none at all. So for some people, and I'm thinking of a particular research article on methylation diets where they had a dozen or 24 people participate. Some people showed after a 6 week, I think it's a 6 week study. I'll double check. I'm trying to remember that off the top of my head. But after 6 or 8 weeks of people engaged in a methylation diet, they are showing that they had somewhere between, some people had a 7 to 8 year biologic age reduction, right? Some people had a 1 or 2 year biologic age reduction, some had none at all, or very, very little. So some people change quite drastically over the course of that 2 month period just by changing their diet. I love some of the books by Dr. Gundry. He wrote a book called Longevity Diet, and I think he also wrote a book called Plant Paradox. He wrote a book called Longevity Paradox. There's a different author for the Longevity Diet, also a great book. But Dr. Gundry talks about certain foods that directly impact your microbiome in your gut, and how that is the key ingredient to health and longevity. It's a great book. It really explains a lot, but you can see specifically that one activity can produce this direct impact on your physiology, and it can be tested and it can be documented. So that's what we're talking about. So now let's go back to the longevity platform, the RELATYV platform. If you have a list of items you're participating in, let's just say that you pick supplementation, because we know there's a variety of supplements that actually produce this as well. And that seems to be one of the easiest things for people to do. If you had a nice supplement formula or supplement regimen that you could take, that would be easier to comply with than some of the other more I guess, intrusive things that take time out of your day or take more effort, I suppose. Obviously, if you're motivated, you'll do things that are good for you. So that's the whole idea here. But supplementation is a very easy one. But if you choose supplementation and sauna therapy and, let's say, a good, healthy longevity diet or methylation diet, and you do all three of those, and you're tracking them, and we have data that shows the average person experiences this amount of improvement with this particular activity. The algorithm that I have written for this, it calculates the estimated biologic age reduction on a monthly basis. It starts out on a monthly basis. You go into the system and you document your successful completion of various events. And then over the course of the month, using all the research on those particular topics, we predictively calculate your biologic age reduction. And then we do that again the next month and the next month. And then at the end of the 6-month period, you're getting a second blood test, which is what would be recommended for an actively tracking patient with a doctor, is to have a second blood test engaged to see where things are. Now we'll be able to show all the physiologic improvements across the board, all of the health and wellness markers. You're looking at everything that's going to be positively impacted. It'll show up in the blood test, as well as your biologic age score. Let's say for a second that over the course of 6 months, the predictive scoring algorithm, it showed that you had a 5-year biologic age reduction from all the things that you're doing. And that's great. And then you get your blood test. It actually shows that you had a 7-year biologic age reduction from when you started. That's great. Now the algorithm is able to reset its value for you based off of what actually happened to you between the first test and the second test at the end of 6 months. It can go back and it can use all the activities you engaged in, and it can recalculate the values of those activities to you. And in the next 6 months, it can create a more accurate reflection of your biologic age reduction. Keep in mind, it also adjusts for where you are when you start, because someone who has already achieved a 10-year reduction, the first 10 years is, let's call it easy. The second 10 years would be harder, and the third 10 years would be much harder, right? You're not going to have the same rate of success if you are, actively testing younger and younger biologically. It's going to slow down a bit. And obviously, if you're 30 years old, it'll be very difficult for you to test as a 20-year-old. There's not as much variability for your body to achieve versus if you're 70-year-old and you're testing as a 50-year-old. That's much easier for your body to accomplish because there's so much variability and possibility and changes that can occur. So that being said, the algorithm will predictively re-engage your scoring metric. So it'll be able to more accurately portray your future biologic age score. And that's what the algorithm does. So it's pretty exciting. One of the things that I'm working on now is engaging in a more sophisticated AI model for this. And that's something that I have been working on. I've actually got a few healthcare and medical groups out there that are interested in working on this with me. It's something that I'm excited about. Being able to use an AI scoring metric to actually calculate biologic age in between blood tests at a fairly accurate level like this is a very important tool for a range of health and wellness. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. And that might be, a year or two out before we have something more sophisticated like that. But the algorithm is already fairly sophisticated for what it can do. And people ask, so going back to why quote unquote bother with all of that, it's all about longevity as the motivation for wellness and health, right? That's the whole idea. If you are only going to see your next successful age score 6 months from now, then you don't really have a quote unquote a result to lean on in the meantime, right? 3 months into that 6 months, you could very well lose your motivation and steam, get distracted by something else. There's a number of things that can happen to you over the course of 6 months that would take you off track. Everyone knows this. How many people actually stick to, I mentioned this in the book and I joke, but yes, New Year's resolutions, everyone's got, something they want to do at the beginning of the year. And we all know that lasts about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 2 months at the best. And then the rest of the world goes back to normal. No one's got 6 months. Well, I'll say no one. A lot of people I know don't last 6 months into a New Year's resolution. Most people just don't. And probably because resolutions aren't structured as true SMART goals. Maybe that's why. But in general, 6 months is quite a long time for someone to stay independently motivated on a range of health activities, right? So that's why I'll go into this in the next episode, why the health coach, the longevity coach, a longevity health coach, is the most important element of this platform. It keeps people engaged. It keeps people motivated. There's literally someone, I say literally, not, I guess, metaphorically, someone's holding your hand, but they're literally with you while you do this, on the phone, texting you. Some coaches may live near you and you may actually be able to see them in real life, but some of them may be remote and be able to help you. But they're going to be with you as you move forward, keeping you engaged, keeping you motivated, staying on top of this process so that you can achieve this biologic age reduction. So going back to why all of this is valuable, I go into this in later episodes. It's in the book, Longevity is the New Wellness. There are a lot of reasons why someone would want to do this. And I'll just mention the first. The first one obviously is if you could live 10 years longer than you are going to live, would you take that option, right? And what we're talking about is healthy living. We're not talking about living 10 years longer in a state of poor health, right? And being unhappy and in pain. That's not what we're talking about. Ideally, someone would be in a state of active vibrance. Engaging in all these health and wellness activities are going to bring them into a much more healthy state of life. So when they're 50, 60, 70 years old and they're testing at a 30, 40, 50-year-old, they're testing at that younger age. Theoretically, and in a lot of cases, when you talk to people, they truly feel that way. They feel younger. They feel healthier. They engage in more activities. They do more stuff than they would have in a normal scenario being their chronologic age, right? That's the exciting part, is they have more health and more vibrance, and they're having a much more engaging life at those ages. That's the objective. So what if you could extend in your lifetime 10 more years of healthy, vibrant life, right? Where in your life frame spectrum would you want that? I mean, I could say not the last 10 years necessarily of your life, but somewhere along the way, you've achieved an additional 10 years of healthy, vibrant, active life. And that's very exciting. It's also very valuable to someone. So that's just one aspect of it, right? The other one is 10 more years of potentially being with family members and children, grandchildren, if you're a family person, or simply if you don't have that, then a lot of people are working on projects, things that they want to do for society and for the world, things that they feel like they can engage in, contribute to. You have 10 more years to do that, right? 10 more years of healthy life. I myself, I'm looking forward to, I've got children myself. I'm looking forward to seeing their kids and grandkids. It'd be amazing if I could live long enough to see great grandkids or more, right? That'd be a huge success for me in my life to be able to do that and be healthy enough to engage with them and do things with them. That would be huge. That'd be a tremendous benefit to me. It'd be worth engaging in all these activities now to be able to get there later. So that's another aspect of it. And then, of course, some of the other elements of this are potentially financial, right? And also health. I'll start with health first. We have, take a drink of water here. We have a tremendous level of health concern in our society. Everyone's got health issues. Everyone knows someone with serious health issues. These activities, these health and wellness activities are designed to help improve their overall physiology and health condition and potentially stave off the major problems. I can't say with any sort of certainty that what we're doing here and helping people do is going to stop them from acquiring some sort of serious illness. But what if it could prolong the onset of something? What if it could stop something from occurring sooner than it would have, right? I mean, everybody would want that. It's hard to prove that, all these activities stopped you from acquiring this serious illness down the road, or that it put it off, right? So that's very difficult to tell. But you can ask most doctors, do you think that engaging in these activities is going to produce a much better health outcome? And they'll also, yes, absolutely. Doing the special dieting, taking the supplementation, doing the exercise, the walking, the steps, the weights, and the sauna and cryotherapy, all those things, they're going to produce better health. And any doctor will tell you that is exactly what you want. It's all you can do is actually try to create a healthier physiology overall to reduce chronic illness, right? That's it. That's all you really can do. Be as healthy as you can. And I go back to the whole statement, longevity is the motivational tool to do it, right? That's why I like that concept. So potentially you're staving off a range of serious illnesses that hopefully don't come at all, but if they do have to come, they come 10, 20 years after they would have come, right? Letting you have all that extra time to be healthy and alive and vibrant with your friends and family. So that's another aspect. Another one is in the financial side of it, right? How much of a financial burden is it to engage in a serious illness? Everyone knows that. It's not easy, and it's very, very, it destroys families, it destroys societies to have these serious health burdens. So that's another aspect. If you could put off serious health events and health burdens and illnesses, even for 10 years, right? What kind of benefit would that be to your life and to your family to be able to delay the onset of a serious illness that through being healthy and well and using longevity as your motivational tool to achieve it. So those are all some very interesting questions. I've mentioned several of them in the book as well. And that's something that I really feel strongly about, that there are multiple aspects of why this is valuable. So going back to what the doctor once told me that I was talking about earlier, it's just a tool for bragging, right? Oh yeah, I test 20 years younger than I am. And I could see that in some cases. And some people may want to brag that up. That is not the objective here. We are trying to help people engage in a biologic age reduction that reflects in their health and physiology. That's the objective. And all the benefits that come with that, that's what we're after. All right. So I encourage all of you to take a moment to check out the RELATYV platform. It is relatyv.com, RELATYV, and you can read about some of the process. We have a great educational platform there, and you can read. There's articles of all sorts on the topic of longevity and health and wellness and how that works. And in the next episode, I'll be interviewing a coaching expert who actually writes coaching programs. And she has been a long time certified health coach herself. She has actually been helping to create the longevity coaching platform. So she'll have a lot of great insight into coaching and how this works and why it's valuable. But you can read about that on the RELATYV platform as well. I encourage all of you to check that out. You don't have to engage in it if you don't want to, but I would love to hear your feedback on it. If you have ideas for things you'd like to see on the site, I'm more than happy to connect with you personally. I do try to connect with everyone who has a sincere comment or interest. I try and engage with them personally. So you can leave a message on the site. You can actually reach out to me on my personal website, willbozeman.com. I have a number of social media accounts. You can reach out to me there as well. I do respond to those. And also, too, I'd like to invite you to let me know what questions you have about longevity, and in particular, longevity as the new wellness. How do certain activities and things, supplements, products, anything at all you might have going on in your life, how can that improve or affect your longevity? I'm very happy to talk about that. I also have a variety of other topics that I talk about in the health and medical and biotech space. I'm very happy to talk about those as well. If you have questions on any of those things, please reach out to me, and we'll address it here on the podcast. So if you can do that, let me know what questions you have. I'll be happy to reach out and talk about it. And I encourage all of you to continue listening to Longevity is the New Wellness, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.